Hello, everybody, and hello to Ken and Byron. And thank you for joining me today for what I think is going to be a really exciting day of conversations. I'm so excited about the book coming out. Thank you to those who have already ordered it and who have read it and are reading and maybe going and writing some reviews somewhere. I really appreciate that. But I especially chose these two wonderful individuals to start the day because, well, let me just tell you who they are first. Byron Borger, I think if anybody loves books, and especially loves books that relate faith to culture, you probably know Byron Borger's names. His bookstore Hearts and Mind, which if you do not have the book yet, I would say go immediately and buy it from him. Oh, he's got plenty. He's got plenty. He's got props. And there's a subliminal message in the background to buy Karen Swallow Prior's book too. Do you see it? It's on the wall. But Byron Borger is very known for just being, well, both Ken and Byron are really bring together conversations about faith and the arts, and really kind of curators of culture. And so I really wanted us to start them off. And Ken Heffner is a good friend that I met in 2008 when I was working at Calvin University. It was Calvin College then, and Ken was the student activities director there. And anybody who knows me has heard so much about the Festival of Faith and Music. That was his brainchild. That was his baby. An amazing community that happened for years. And he is currently teaching as an adjunct at Calvin. And I think today's his last day of class. So we can celebrate that too. Yay. So I'm just really excited. Again, these are two people that I really look up to. I want to be like them. I want to be like them and constantly host conversations around the importance of the arts. And so thank you both for being here.
Well, Mary, as a bookseller, my wife and I are just thrilled to get to talk about this. And I'm not kidding when I say this. I mean, we've had a variety of people in the store here. Our bookstore is a brick and mortar store in Dallastown, Pennsylvania. We do lots of mail out stuff, even though our inventory isn't online. So we're not a fancy pants online marketplace, but we do reviews of books. Another one just went out today, almost every week. And so we reviewed your book a little while ago, and I was not kidding when I said how much I enjoyed it. When I was writing about it, I sort of skimmed it, of course, so I could tell people what it was, sort of announce it and celebrate it. But now that I've read it carefully, I'm even more enthused. I'm going to write about it again. Aww. The way you weave together both high literature and contemporary literature and movies and Sufjan Stevens and Welcome Wagon, and you're bringing pop culture and narrative art, as you call it. When I ordered the book, I knew a little about you, of course, because we had met before. And my wife said she really likes pop culture because she was involved with Ken. And I was like, yeah, of course. But I thought the book was going to be about the visual arts somehow. And then as soon as we get it, we realized you use this phrase narrative arts, that arts are stories. So I'm just real excited, and Beth and I are pleased to sell it, and we're just honored to be here. Ken has shaped your life a lot, I know, as he shaped mine as well, so this is going to be fun. Here's my first question, though, I guess. For people that don't know who you are, you're at Lee College. Where is that?
It's university.
Where is this book coming from? Like, where is it situated? Who has shaped you over the years to get you interested in everybody from, Toni Morrison to Sufjan Stevens? Tell us a bit about yourself and what communities shaped you and this book.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I do currently teach. It's Lee University now. It used to be Lee College, but they've been a university a while, just like Calvin is now a university. But I teach there now, and I'll first say that a lot of the book came straight out of my classroom. This is how I teach, and I wanted to kind of open up the classroom to the world and have these conversations on a broader scale. But to think about, and I've learned so much from my students, and I've seen them dramatically change in regards to empathy according to what we've read and listened to and watched in class. I've seen it happen. It's amazing to watch. But as far as communities, I mean, I would go back to I mean, I think really when I started thinking about a lot of this was when I first went to Covenant College and learned about common grace insights,
Mhm.
and realized that the fact that I loved, the Smiths and the Sex Pistols, I didn't need to feel guilty about that. There was something good there. That there was some things in there that were both maybe. I was gonna say beautiful. I don't know if that would fit with the Sex Pistols, uh, but some truth. And so I got very interested. I mean, I've always loved reading and I've loved culture, but I got very interested in the theological aspects of things on many different levels. And then I've spent a lot of time with the L'Abri community in England.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that way, of thinking of just of all of life, is all of life is has a spiritual aspect to it. It's not like our lives should be partitioned and the only things that have to do with God are like the Bible study, going to church, etc. This is all of life. Um, but I really wanted to speak about the Festival of Faith and Music in my time. I was only at Calvin for 2 years, but oh my word, this was a huge part of my story, a huge part of my life. And I helped organize the festival in 2009, but then all the other festivals after that, even though I was down 10 hours away at Lee,
Mhm. Mhm.
got to come up and be on the committee there and help out and bring students. But
Mhm.
I just want to say that I just learned so much from watching and being around Ken and the community that Ken forms and the way he ends every concert with, can we have an open conversation? He really lived that idea that art is a conversation. It's not just an object to be consumed, which is a philosophy I really learned a lot from at L'Abri, our
Mhm.
approach.
Mhm.
And just to see, it was really beautiful to see the musicians uh, relationships with Ken. And I don't know, I just learned a lot about thinking also about the artists themselves as image bearers and caring about, real, again, just really thinking about this as these are embodied conversations. We are partaking and participating in something. And there's a point where we need to kind of be humble and listen. And I felt like this was one place, maybe more than any I've been, where I really saw this put into practice. So that really shaped a
Mhm.
lot. That really shaped a lot of what went into the book. So thank you for that question.
That's really interesting that you noticed a sort of empathy and conversation with the artists and their art that Ken
Mhm.
often facilitated, even after concerts, would bring the artists back out and talk with them as people. You do that in the book. Like you are empathetic for the
Mhm.
writer,
Mhm.
like the guy that wrote Blankets or so many of the people you write about. You show empathy for the writer or the performer, but you also are empathetic for the characters in the novel, which I guess is the heart of the book. But I found it sort of remarkable how gracious you could be over some of the bad folks in the stories you're writing about. They are broken and hurtful, and yet you see them as image bearers. Talk about that image of God stuff that you
Mhm.
talk about in the beginning of the book. What's the relationship of empathy and that people are made in God's image?
Yes, I think, well, this is every human being. I mean, this is why, okay, so maybe I hope I don't dance all over the place, but I just was teaching about this semester about Darwin, and I'm not being all anti-Darwin, but I do think the idea of I mean, when you read Darwin closely, and there is the problematic issue is the idea of ignoring the image of God in human beings, that we are just coming from one or two organisms into the image of God. I mean, sorry, into more highly evolved animals, and then from this we go into a kind of social Darwinism. I mean, I don't know. It's like if you erase the image of God in other people, then you start to base their value on, well, how much intellect do they have? How much talent do they have? And you don't see all people as equally worthy and valuable. It's more like it's it's easy to slip into a survival of the fittest philosophy, or it's easy to slip into a, however you perform, that's what defines you. Like Sartre would say, you choose who you are, that you're more valuable by what you do. Whereas the Christian understanding of the image of God is that you are valuable just inherently because you were made in the image of God. And so that's why I think it's very hard to do. I'm not saying I'm great. It's easier for me to do it in a movie than it was in real life, but it's to kind of try to practice. I don't know. I mean, I'll give you an example from real life. I remember when Bin Laden was killed, and I saw some Christians like on Facebook, yay, he's dead, he's in hell. And this really upset me because I thought, to me, any death of any image bearer, especially if they're that lost and confused and hateful, is tragic. And so if we can just, I don't know, I try to remember these people, and also try to remember there are reasons behind why they are the way they are. So I talk about the film Magnolia, and there's that despicable Tom Cruise character. But my goodness, that the talent of P.T. Anderson, when you're almost weeping for this man because he's weeping, and you realize when his father's dying, you realize the reason he is the way he is. And perhaps that makes us think, what about those other people that we're around that are just so hateful, misogynistic, jerks, and think, well, why are they that way? What's happened to them? So I guess that's on two. One is, just seeing God's image in every person, and remembering that in every person we can see the face of Christ, but then also the kind of father, they know not what they do, like just kind of that, looking at them and lovingly and empathetically the way Christ does, and realizing cruelty and anger comes from pain typically. And that doesn't mean we should excuse what they do, of course not, but there is a person there that God loves. So I don't know. I could say a lot more about that, but hopefully that kind of.
And the presumption you make beforehand, before you even start talking about empathy, is that all of these arts, literature, film, music, matter. And that's, Byron has asked that question, and I'm wanting to ask it again in some ways, and that is, for most of the Christian community, it doesn't matter. It's disposed. It's part of the popular arts are part of the problem, not part of the solution. And the only answer there is to do a Christianized version of it, which is usually not very artful or Christian. And so, and so that's a tragedy that has happened. So that when I met you, I realized very quickly that I'd found another soulmate, someone else who, you understand these things. That I don't have a large community of people who I could talk to. Byron and I have known each other for 40 plus years, and we kind of formed these ideas together. But meeting other people, David Dark and Steve Stockman, just to name two, were important people who are doing this kind of work. And unfortunately, it's not very common. Yeah. So I want to thank you for doing it, and then just continuing to do it, just pounding away at it, teaching and writing. You started your story at Covenant College, and that's where the seeds of this were planted. Why did you go to Covenant?
Well, you know what I'm thinking? Can I go back a little bit?
Sure.
I was thinking Covenant, but I think it didn't just start in Covenant, because I was just thinking, I wrote an article some years back for Christ and Pop Culture about punk rock and about being in high school, listening to punk rock. And now thinking about it, well, I was very exposed. Well, first of all, even in my junior high youth group, my youth group leaders got me into really good music, like The Replacements, U2 back then in the 80s, Simple Minds. That was my first concert like that. And so, I really loved this. And then in high school, I started out wanting to be one of the popular kids, and my high school had sororities. Isn't it weird?
Did you grow up near Memphis?
Yes, and it was a large Germantown high school, 4,000 person large high school,
Sure,
and
yeah.
had big football team, cheerleaders, and I
Sure.
wanted to be a part of that for like a semester. But then
You
one of my
mentioned that in the book. You even
Yeah.
say that. It's hilarious.
and then
And
one
then
of
you
my
found a home in the punk rock community.
yes, and this is why Friday Night Lights was convicting to me. But anyway, but then my friend, I don't know if I mentioned this, but my friend came back after Christmas break. She who also wanted to be popular. She came back wearing all black with a little black metal lunchbox that was spray painted black and had a Misfit sticker on it. And then I got into the whole punk thing and became friends with just some amazing artists and thinkers, even in high school, and learned a lot from them and would go to the punk rock shows. And there was something about that. I don't think I could put words to it. That's the thing. I didn't really have the theological framework for it, but I recognized that there was something good and true there, that these were people seeking, especially in the punk rock scene, they were seeking community. They were seeking truth. They were kind of resisting the system, all of these things. And I've thought about this a lot, especially two of my dear friends from high school have died already. And they're both artists, incredible artists, and just realizing how formative. So I think already I was having such deep conversations, but most of these friends were not Christians. So then Covenant, why did I go to Covenant? If you want to know the truth of it, Ken, when I was on one of these high school fun in the sun trips, I met some cool folks from Chattanooga, and of course a boy that I had a crush on. So then I came back to the preview weekend at Covenant to see Covenant, but also because I wanted to see the cute boy I had a crush on. But I loved Covenant because I sat in a class and I had not heard teaching like that before. And I just loved it. It was Ray Clark's class. So then I came back to Covenant, and for the first time, I remember with the different professors having film nights at their house where we watched and talked about film. I remember Crimes and Misdemeanors. I remember La Dolce Vita, all of these things, so that was a real introduction to talking about popular culture in a very serious way. And also a philosophy professor, Dr. Reginald McClellan, who I'm still good friends with, the way he taught about just the way he taught. I mean, it was the first time I'd really learned anything about philosophy. And so all of this just started coming together, and Covenant really gave me the language and understanding of all of these things are important. There's not one, it's not like high art is more Christian and more important, and low art Ken, there's a quote I use in my classes from you, that the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of light is always everywhere all the time, or something like that. Is that right? But
it's not my idea, but yeah.
Oh, I know, but the way you put it. So I don't know. That really clicked a lot at Covenant.
Didn't your mom also introduce you to the work of Elvis Presley?
Oh, yes.
And that's another piece of your past too.
It is. And I should have shouted another thing about, two things. My mom is a person that, when all the other kids would say things like, would go off and do things secretly, my mom would say, let's sit down and talk about it. Let's watch this and sit down and talk about it. So that's another huge
Sure, yeah.
piece. And there's a funny story about when I was like 4 or 5 years old in kindergarten, and these kids were kind of bragging about their parents had go to nightclubs. And I thought that sounded really cool. And I was talking to my mom, and she said, well, let's go look at it. And we went to the nightclub where it just stood outside the door. And I was like, oh, it's dark and they all look so sad. And I was like, I don't want to go there. And I went back to class the next day, and they started talking about the nightclub. And I said, I've been there. It's nothing.
This is all of 5 years old. Yeah.
5 years old. No, but she would tell me, Mary, that's what's going on. Let's talk about it. And let's, discern. I mean, it was discernment from a very young age. So I'm so thankful for her in that. And but also, yes, Elvis Presley. She knew him. My grandmother paid him to perform. And
Wow.
yeah, she, you don't know about that, Byron.
I've heard this story. Yeah.
Yeah, my grandmother paid him 2 different summers. I think it was a fundraising for some community organization to build a fence or something. And she paid him, because it was in Forest City, Arkansas, $50, then $100. And then the third year it was he was too expensive. So
Well, Karen Swallow Pryor can't say that.
no.
Hey, can I ask a question? You know, you've said, as Ken so often so wisely puts it, that we kind of think about high culture sometimes. It's not uncommon to analyze literature and the visual arts and the Renaissance, but we demean popular culture too often. Yeah. Okay, so you've gotten around that, and that's good. Now, let me ask this. How does a white girl from Memphis become so interested and fluent in Black literature? In your book, from poetry to short story to, of course, the Toni Morrison piece, you're pretty fluent with African-American literature. Is it just because you're a literature prof? Does your Christian faith in the South, in a segregated era somewhat? I mean, you're not that old, but tell us how you came to be so aware of Black writers in this book.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And well, first of all, again, I go back to growing up. I mean, Memphis is like 70% African American. So, but I wasn't in those communities. It was very, it's segregated pretty much. It's gotten better in that regard. Like, I didn't grow up seeing interracial churches or anything like that, which now they do have some. So there's some changes. So I always kind of had a bit of a passion for racial justice issues, but I didn't know so much about it. And then there's a good friend that I made when I was in college, because he and his wife lived next door, and he was a young Black Republican, which he's now not that anymore. But but I mean, I learned a lot from talking to him, my friend Brian. But then I'll just say that really what happened with Ferguson, I've always liked African-American literature, but I think I've just gotten much more intentional, because what occurred at Ferguson, and I joined the Christ in Pop Culture Facebook group, and there were some people in there like Ekemini Uwan and Tyler Burns, who I'm talking to later today. And I just learned so much from them, and realized that the whole idea of I don't know what I don't know. Also, Jackie, what is her name? Last name?
Fields.
Fields, yes.
Fields.
Jackie Fields, who was at Calvin. I feel like when all of that unrest and these horrible shootings and horrible things just kept happening, I just started to pay attention more to Black Christian leaders, whether like musicians or pastors, and then started really listening more to my students and asking them questions. Because at Lee, I've had quite a few. I mean, I've had quite a diverse group of students, more than at Calvin, and just hearing their stories. And so then, I don't know, I think that just got me more. I recognized there was an interest, but also I just felt like there was a need for me to know more, to understand more, to grow my sense of empathy and knowledge and care. And so I just started, again, I've always loved African-American literature, and I read Beloved way back when I was in graduate school in England. But it all started to come together more in a personal and lived way. And now I've taught 4 times an African-American literature and culture class. And I just keep wanting to, I just want to grow. I did not do my dissertation. I wrote about contemporary literature, but they were pretty much all white males. But now I'm wanting to grow my education. And so I'm kind of learning that, so maybe that explains a little bit of that.
Well, you're quoting Langston Hughes, and you're looking at Black filmmakers. It's in here, and that's a good contribution to the rounded understanding of how the arts create empathetic. It's an important piece. Flannery O'Connor too. Speaking of white folks from the South, man, you cover Flannery O'Connor as well. You must on a book like this, and you
You
do
have to
that
cover
really well.
Flannery O'Connor, huh?
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
have to cover Flannery O'Connor.
You
So
do. Well, no, the thing is you don't have to, but you did.
yeah,
And a lot of people don't.
yeah, I guess that's true. But I tried to do different. I tried to well, I've talked about Good Man's Hard to Find, which everyone knows, but I don't know if everyone has looked at it that particular way. It's a story about empathy. Because I don't even know if I really picked up on that until I started writing about it. You know, these things just start to make sense when you write about it or teach about it.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
well, we're almost out of time. Ken, did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, I'm just wanting to say I'm grateful for the work you do, and to see this book kind of be given to the larger world, because your students know about what you do, and I know about what you do, but this now becomes much more public, and it contributes to the conversation in a way that I think is healing. So thanks for that long history of you doing that work.
Yeah.
And then for this current iteration of, of the way you approach this. And it's I believe it's part of the answer. So it's part of the answer for a church that is basically imploding. So, well.
Yeah. Well, and again, I'm very indebted to you. So for a lot of this. So, well, thank you so much to both of you. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Byron. And gosh, I just want to talk all day. This is the hard part. I'm talking to so many great people that I want to talk for far longer than what I said.
And where can you get that book again?
Oh, yes, I was about to say that. Hearts and Minds. I'll put the link on my Facebook page. But
we have it at 20% off, no less, and we can.
Oh my goodness!
20% off at Hearts and Minds. So yes, and you want to support Byron, and while you're at it, if you don't have Karen's book, then you can buy that too, because then subliminal message.
And Jessica Hooten Wilson. Jessica
Hooten Wilson has a new. There's
a good
so many
for you too.
And another person that I'm talking to today, I'm sure you'll have his book soon, is Claude Acho's Reading Black Books. Yep. Speaking of what we were just talking about.
Sure. I've got the manuscript. Yep.
Oh, okay. So buy all those things from Byron.
And people should tune in throughout the day. Just same way they go to your Facebook page.
Yeah.
Who are some of the people you have coming up in the next couple hours?
Well, I'm talking to Joe Kikasola. I'm talking to Becca Mason. She directs the Revoice conference. You familiar with that? Yeah, talking to Becca. Andrew Tate is, he was the external examiner on my dissertation. He is an incredible scholar, British scholar. He's written the one book there is on Douglas Copeland, and just done a lot on contemporary literature and theology. So those are coming. And then later this afternoon, Claude, Tyler, Karen Swallow Pryor, Steve Garber. So
Mako, you got
Mako, yes, of course. Mako, yes. And then the ends with Douglas Copeland.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
Nice lineup.
Fun lineup. So, but thank you for starting it off. Now I'm like super excited and pumped up.
Good.
So anyway, we have to talk again soon. Okay.
All right. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.